Hey guys, Martial Arts Militia here. My name is Matthew. And today's video is going to be a book review of the Budoshoshinshu. Now this book is actually a trilogy. The author, William Scott Wilson, talks about. This is the second book in this trilogy. I didn't know that. I do have all three. It's actually Hagakure, Budoshoshinshu, and then Ideals of the Samurai. Again, I didn't know there was an order. I just kind of looked at all three, and I like this one because there's kind of like lessons. You know, it's written in like lesson order, so from 1 to 56, I think it is. And so I just like that as sort of a good start to be like, okay, let me kind of, figure out these values, these lessons. And then the other ones, Hagakure, Ideals of the Samurai, they were fine, but I was under the impression this is the first one, but it's actually not. So I already read this, so we might as well just go with it. As I mentioned, it's 56 lessons in the book, and of course I can't talk about the whole thing in the book. I don't think that's how book reviews work. I think you can talk about some of them or a little bit of them. So basically I just picked 16 lessons out of the entire 56. Now this Budoshoshinshu, it translates to something like collections of lessons for like a beginner samurai. This was written by Daidoji Yuzan, and actually he would have been pretty close to one of the few remaining samurai before they became extinct. Extinct in the sense that like their necessity is no longer needed after Japan was unified under the Tokugawa government, Tokugawa shogunate. And one of the things that my English teacher always taught us in middle school is that when you read a book, you have to think about the events happening at that time, at the author's time, because chances are what's happening in, this would have been about 1660 Japan. It's probably different than, 2026, Asian American in America, right? There's not too many relatable connections there. So just keep in mind that, what I get from it doesn't mean that that's what it is, right? There's like a 400-year difference between us. Chances are what I'm interpreting is not what the author was interpreting. And then of course, as I said, the time period that Daidoji Yuzan was in, he was classically trained as a samurai, as most people would have been, but it's so close to that time where the samurai were pretty much getting extinct. And so I think he kind of wrote this as sort of a reminder, and most of the samurai at the time knew that they were about to be, gone. Nobody would care or talk about them anymore. Now, the lesson order that I have is not what's in the book. I kind of just changed it for clarity because there's two translations of this that Wilson talks about, and the only difference is the order. So, it can be in or out of order. So I just changed the order myself to make it a little bit more sensible. Now, as you can imagine, we don't have lords today. I think the closest is, of course, Jesus Christ. And then after that would be your parents, and then your bosses, and then maybe your coworkers and your friends. So that's kind of the hierarchy of our lords today. But, back then, of course, you guys probably know that a samurai had a lord and that he was pretty much loyal until they died. Then they'd be a ronin and they'd serve another lord if they were selected again. So the first lesson I'm going to choose from this book is actually, I think it is the first one. It's to make life replete, constantly thinking of death. Now, I think with, kind of a hard subject to start with, but I think most of the samurai books consider that when you're comfortable with death or you've accepted death, is that if you hold on to life too much, you're going to be very safe and in a way cowardly, right? Because if you're obsessed with longevity, then what's the point of living a long time? It's mostly hedonism, right? Just living for pleasure. And then of course, hedonism is a symptom of cowardice, because if you're just living for pleasure, then obviously you're going to save yourself all the time to make sure that you get as much pleasure as possible. So as the author would say, yes, hedonism is a symptom of cowardice. As martial artists, our health is really meant to protect other civilians. And the only way to cleanse yourself of hedonism really is, as the author would say, is loyalty, righteousness, and courage, right? If you focus on those three things and you clean your mind all the time, which is a separate lesson actually, I think it's old hands and white garments. Basically what happens is, as you wear white clothes, they become pretty gray and pretty dull, right? And you have to clean it, right, to make it white again. It's the same thing. Like if you're just hearing yourself and you serve yourself, right, then you become more hedonistic, more cowardly, and you forget your job, who you're supposed to serve, your Lord, right? So again, just being comfortable with death, like understanding that it could happen at any time. That way you're not like, I don't know, you're not useless, I guess I would say. A little bit hard to understand, but again, like the author does a pretty good job explaining it. I think it's just the more you're in the martial arts, you'll understand that lesson very well. Now lesson 2 is do not forget preparedness for battle. So here, Daidoji Yuzan is talking about like, when you wear your weapon, his sword at the time would have been, right? You wear it with a purpose. Otherwise, if you're not really sure why you're doing it, I mean, you could be like a merchant. You could be like anybody, but you wear it and you don't recognize it. So for today, it'd be like somebody who buys a gun. You have the ammo in the gun, but then you just put it in a drawer, right? You never wear it. You never practice with it. In a way that kind of makes you more dangerous, in my opinion, right? If you don't know how to use your own martial art, then that's quite dangerous. But yeah, to me, it kind of reminds me of like the EDC thing, everyday carry. That's why we have different kinds of martial arts, right? We have, as I would say, you got your full size, right? Full size gun. Well, not really, it's compact. But then you also have like super subcompact, like this one, right? And so the difference is that with the smaller one, you're going to carry it more often. And here it's like, okay, well, this is a little bit of a work, but it's more suited for a serious situation, So again, EDC, pretty important. People have flashlights, knives, things like that. Pretty much normal stuff. I'd also say too with EDC is that you also have to keep your diet and exercise in order, right, in check. Something that you can do all the time. So with exercise, your shape is determined what you're doing all the time. So you don't have big changes throughout your exercise and your shape will be the same. And that's important because your clothes, right? Your concealed carry clothes, you get a shirt that kind of flares out, right? Blocks out the gun. And then, your clothes have to kind of fit you too, right? So that goes back to the exercise and the diet. For summer and winter, I always go with 2 layers. So for the summer, I need to have just this, and then I'd have the overshirt. It'd be this, you put on the gun, and then the overshirt. And then if I needed something else, I could have a light coat, I guess, right? And in the winter, it's the same thing. It's this again, the gun, and then the overshirt, and then a winter coat, right? And again, like if you're not consistent with your diet and exercise, your body changes all the time, you gotta keep buying stuff over and over again. So again, being consistent with that sort of diet and exercise, that way your shape is the same. This is gonna be pretty much my shape, pretty much our whole life until I die. So that's why I've gotten my concealed carry clothes already figured out. So it's pretty nice. The third one I chose is choosing a horse. Now, no, I'm not going to tell you about which horse to get because I have no idea. But basically, what Daidoji Yuzan is talking about is that some people will buy really expensive horses, really rare horses, and they have no problem, don't need to be taught anything. It just works really well, But he's saying that as a samurai, because you might be a low-ranking samurai, you don't have as much money, it's not that bad to get like a bad horse either and train out its bad habits and then train your skill with it too, right? He's just trying to be more, I think, kind of like frugal. So the reason I chose a lesson is that, no, I'm not talking about horses, but it does make me think about martial arts and cars, right? So with martial arts, you can get a really good one, get something by Smith & Wesson, Colt, Ruger's pretty good, or everyday man's type. Taurus is hit and miss, so I would just expect you not to get a good one. And then if you can trade it out, that'd be good. High Point would be the cheapest, but I think I don't think anybody really recommends that. So again, you don't need like $2,000 gun, right? I mean, it'd be really nice, but is it any different than like a $500 one? Probably not. So again, right, why not just buy that one, train up your skill at 1,500 rounds of ammunition, and you're good to go. right? So same kind of idea of frugality. The car is pretty much the same thing, you know. You could take a Lambo to work all the time, or you could just take the Honda Civic. Again, you save gas, save money. That's more ammo, means more training, means you're a better martial artist. So again, just thinking more about utility than luxury. And of course, you know, diet and exercise are the same things too. You'll see these fancy protein bars, $4, $5, $6, you know. But if you just have a humble, good oatmeal diet, you know, try to keep low fat, low sugar, low salt, it's the same thing. And that means more money back in your pocket, which means you train more, you become a better fighter. So that's how I got from his lesson about choosing a horse. Obviously, he's talking about a real horse, but I'm just saying, unless you're a farmer, like, you know, I don't know a thing about a horse, but that's what it kind of reminded me of. Now, lesson 4 kind of builds off of that, which is frugality too is for the sake of service. So again, just kind of hammering in, you know, that frugality, saving money, it should go towards a reason, right? Whether it's a better car with better gas mileage, means more money back, or if you put money in a savings account, if you get really high and the percent's really good, like say 4%, if you get, I don't know, maybe like $50,000 in there, that's like $200 a month you're getting back for free, which could be ammo money, which means you train more and be a better martial artist, right? So if you're going to purchase something, it should be for a reason, to increase the utility, so you have more money, so you can train some more, or, you know, picking serviceable martial arts. Again, there's going to be some books, right? Philosophy books, or even just books to work on your health, physical health, exercise, diet. That'd be a good investment too. Events, you know, training, meeting other martial artists. Once again, same thing. So, you know, being cheap, being cheap is not necessarily a bad thing. You know, again, it's for the sake of martial arts, being a better fighter. Next, I have that the warrior's duty is to protect the farmer, craftsman, and merchant. Now, Daidoji Yuzan talks about an old story, so it looks like people talk about this in the past, who knows if it's real, that in the old days there was only 3 classes. You had the farmer, the craftsman, and the merchant. And then there was commerce, and you bought and you sold, and everything was fine. But then you had this new group of people called thieves. Thieves, and they hurting people, attacking people, stealing their stuff. And so eventually the people cry out and say, we need somebody that can stop the thieves. And so, as in martial arts philosophy, you probably know, they created a warrior, a samurai in this case, who would be the opposite of the thief. So almost like a cop, but not necessarily. You know, their whole job being brought up, like literally when they're kids being brought up, is to expect to die. That's what they're expecting. like that's the greatest thing. If they have to go and save somebody and die for it, that'd be the best thing ever, right? That's what they created. They created the warrior, the samurai. And so basically that is also our life mission. You know, no, we're not cops. We're a militia. That's separate from military. Okay, military is, you know, sponsored by government and they pay for all their training and stuff like that. As a militia, we do it ourselves, right? So we have to figure out our own diet, our own exercise program, our own martial arts, or train ourselves, okay? But that is essentially our job as well. The military is just better than us, okay? But we can do it too on a much lower level, right? That is our life mission, is to protect other people. That's the whole goal of martial arts. Martial arts is the art of preservation. Yes, people die if they're stubborn and they will fight to the death. Bad people do that, we see it all the time, but that's not the purpose. Okay, it's never been the purpose. It's just sometimes that happens, and that's out of our control, actually. So again, just remember our life mission. That is our mission. Our life duty is to protect other people. We're just self-funded. We're not government funded, we're self-funded. The next one is that a man of low rank should not have a wife and child. So this one, again, low rank, right, is that Daidoji says, if you get married, and you guys probably know what I'm talking about, you get married, you have a wife and a kid, that's your concern, right? So your concern is not the martial arts mission of protecting other people, it's, is my wife happy? Are the kids happy? Are they set? Are they, you know, settled? They're safe, which is good. It's good, there's nothing wrong with that, you know? But I think Daidoji is saying, in a sense, that, you know, to do that when you're young kind of makes no sense, you know, because in my opinion, I don't think you have enough maturity to have a kid at that young, like 23, 25. I mean, my dad was, but that's kind of different. My dad was 25 when he had my older brother. But my dad also came from communist Laos, and so the communists were killing everybody. About 30,000 deadly oceans, I think. And so my dad saw as a kid, he's seen how easy it is for people to die. Like people literally walk up and just blast them in the fucking head, And so that's why my dad's always been like, when we grew up, he would never let us out of his sight. Like he'd never let us with babysitters. He'd never let us go out with friends or things like. He'd be like, you have to stay home, right? And of course I hated him for that. But now I see he's a really good dad. Like I think he's probably one of the best dads ever. And that has nothing to do with having a lot of money, because we didn't have a lot of money. It's the fact that like he cared about us to know that he needs to be around us all the time. He quit smoking and drinking and all that stuff for us. So after the Vietnam War, people make questionable choices. He gave up on that when he had us, like my older brother and me and the rest of us. Like he just dropped it. He just dropped the alcohol, dropped the cigarettes right away. And so if you're gonna be like that, like if you're gonna be a dad like my dad, like that's all you want, and you're gonna do the very best for them and work 2 or 3 jobs, okay, that's fine, But I don't think most people are like that, Most men, about 28 to 30, it depends. I think I was 28 when my brain woke up and I realized I don't want to live like this anymore, just day by day with no purpose. Everybody's different. Somebody might be a little early, somebody might be a little later, right? But by 30, 35, as a man, you're already like, you know what you want. As a kid, you don't know a damn thing. As a man, you know what you want and you know how to get there. And so Daidoji isn't saying don't have kids, but he's saying like you should focus on your warriorship first, until you're settled and you're a higher rank, you have more money, and you can support a wife and a child, But to do so at 23 or 22 is, even after college, is a little too early, in our times, of course. Even like 35, that's probably all right, I wouldn't be too worried about like if you're too old, because I'm 36, but like nobody at work ever thinks that. Maybe I talk like a kid, I don't know, but nobody ever thinks I'm that old. So, and as a martial artist, if you train and you eat well, like, you're not gonna look too old anyways. So, so as a guy, as a man, I would say don't think like it's too late. If you train and you exercise, and you eat well, yeah, people will think you're like 10 years younger than you are. So it's not a big deal. But that's all I have to say, is that if you're gonna have a kid, be like my dad, be like somebody who like, that's their life purpose and they don't want anything else. And they care about you enough that they don't entrust you to a babysitter, that they want to be around you all the time, that they'll give up not drugs, they'll give up cigarettes and alcohol, If you're gonna do that, fine. But just remember, as a militia, right, as a martial artist, you can't have both. So just remember how difficult that'd be to balance. Next, I had be devoted to negligent parents. So, Daidoji here says that, in my case too, with a great dad, being devoted to good parents is not challenging at all. There's no test in that, right? They take care of you, they buy everything you need, they buy life insurance, they pass away, you're safe, you're settled, you're good, right? Being devoted to someone like that is no challenge. Okay, the real challenge, if you're going to be devoted to a parent that doesn't do any of that they didn't save anything for you, didn't leave anything for you, keep asking you for stuff, and only cares about themselves. Daidoji says if you're really a good warrior, you should actually be devoted to them even if they're bad parents. And the reason why is because if you can't be loyal to bad parents, well, you're not going to be loyal to like your boss, right, who is making mistakes. You're not going to be loyal to your friends who are making mistakes. So, again, I think it's a pretty clear-cut lesson. It's easy to be loyal to people that are good to us. It's very difficult to be loyal to people that have been bad to us. Next one is to complete one's duties within the day. 1 second ahead is uncertain. So I'm pretty guilty of this. I have all my tasks due for the day on my phone, and I'll write them down on what I got to do, and I love erasing it and then redoing it again for the next day. And then I have projects. I have projects that are separate from like my daily duties, And so since they're so separate, I always put it off. I'm like, I can do it this day. I can do it next day. And then it never gets done. And then I just delete it, move it from my goals. So yes, I think here is because I find that even if I have a side task I don't want to do, if I start it, I'll finish it. So I might as well just start it right away, So yes, this would be good for your work career if you get tasks that you get them done before they pile up. Another one is to get to work early. Me and my teammates, my class, it was 8 of us in the correctional officer job. We get to work early 30 minutes every day. Now we're not paid for it, but it's just nice to get there every day, see each other, and then set our tasks for the day, go to our unit 15 minutes before work starts, get everything set up, everything runs smoothly, And even though I never heard anything about it, I'm sure the bosses see that. I'm sure your bosses see that and they take note of that, okay? And so if you find out later, oh, can I do this? Can I try this? Can I go into this kind of a job? They might just, I don't know, say nice things about you and get you to where you want to go. So again, if you get your tasks done right away, they don't pile up on you, get to work early. If you're prepared, obviously it's going to help you in your career. And so just a good skill set to have, right? I think they had, at least what Sarge said was 15 minutes to 15 minutes. So you're 15 minutes early, then 15 minutes. So usually people get to work 15 minutes early, work 15 minutes before that 15 minutes. That's how it's taught. So again, I'd get used to that. Okay, try to make that normal. That way it's just a normal skill set. You don't have to train for it, too late in life. The next one I have is ability and diligence. So here Daidoji Yuzan is talking about the types of samurai. The first one is a samurai of devotion, which is when you strive when others cannot. When tasks are difficult, you still try to complete it, The second one is a samurai of faithful service. That's when you're conducting work cheerfully without negligence. And both of them are great if you get someone that's one or the other. Of course, the best samurai is both. Striving among all difficulties and still being cheerful about it and completing the work without negligence. That, of course, is the highest level of samurai. So, with work, depending on your work, I don't know why. Yesterday was really tough. It was really tough for me to I don't want to say stay awake, but I don't know. I was so bored. When I'm bored, my body wants to sleep, wants to shut down. And even though I was on the unit that is more busy, there's more well-being checks on there. For some reason, I just had difficulty staying awake, but still trying to strive. And we had other tasks to do, and so I'm pulling these 2 heavy-ass meal carts and then running right back. And again, just do the best you can. That's going to help you in your career and get you to where you want to go. Okay. Now, the 10th lesson is to exceed others in some way. This is just a generally good life lesson. Self-improvement. Leadership, always try to tackle your worst skill sets. I know it feels good to do the stuff you're already good at, but keep in mind that your weaknesses stay your weaknesses unless you make them better. So for example, there are positions in my job where you're literally sitting on your ass for 12 hours. That's the job, doing tech computer stuff. I hate that. I hate that, and 2 of my classmates, they hate that too. We do not want to do that. If it happens, it happens, I'm a very active person. I don't want to sit for 12 hours. That's just terrible. That's just terrible. I don't want to do that. Some people do, and that's great. But, obviously if I don't work with the tech, then you degrade in skill. But I will say the last time I was on there, on the computer, I did just fine. I can do it, Could I be better? Sure, of course. But, yeah, try to exceed others. Also exceed yourself. Know your weaknesses. Try to do as much as you can. Anytime there's a chance for a walk, I jump right up. I jump right up and I go for it. If you can. I don't know what it was about yesterday, but I was really tired. I probably ran too much. But yes, do the best you can and always try to exceed yourself. Be better than you were yesterday. From yesterday. Now, number 11 I have is that gossip and backtalk are inexcusable. So I know this is probably the hardest for us in 2026. You know, people like to hear bad news. I don't know why. We like bad news. We like to hear about bad news, and we like to hear bad stuff about people. Unless it's us. We like to hear bad stuff about other people. You know, that kind of thing doesn't really help. It doesn't help because in your work area, your job, you know, you're essentially a clan. Are you not? You're essentially a clan. You have lords and, you know, higher samurai than you, lower samurai. You got all this stuff, right? And so gossip and backtalk is not really helping, because as a clan, we're a team. That means we're all doing a goal, right? And if somebody is going to cause some rifts in the team, then that doesn't really help us, does it? You know, it makes people quit, and then people have to do overtime, and then people are stressed, and then they're thinking of quitting, and then, you see, it's just not good, right? Again, I'm not innocent here. Yes, I do that too. Okay, we all do that. But in general, just think of your job as your team, as your clan. A clan's not going to survive if you all hate each other. Okay, we can be annoyed with each other, but you can't hate each other. You can't sabotage each other. You can't try to get each other set up to get fired. You can't be doing that kind of shit. Okay, you got to work together, right? So in this case, I would just say, you know, or at least for my job, you know, respect your lieutenant sergeants and your sergeants corporals. You know, harassing your teammates can cause a mutiny. We don't want that. Okay, so just try to be respectable. Other people are going to do it, and that's fine. Just try not to have an opinion. Try not to say anything. Okay, that's fine, you know, but just keep that in mind. It's not good creates a hostile work environment. Now, number 12 is forbidden slander of a former lord. Daidoji talks about, you know, when you are working for a lord, things are fine. They lose their position somehow and you become a Ronin. You don't have a lord. Then you go and you get hired by a new one. And like, okay, everything's fine again. And they're like, oh, you used to work for so-and-so. What are they like? You know, there's no reason to slander your former lord. It's not honorable, first of all. And then second of all, you never know. They might come back into power and be greater than you. And what did you say about me? Not good, right? So here, pretty much what I would equate this to is kind of like your boss. You know, we go jobs. You get jobs that are good, jobs that are bad, jobs we hate, jobs we like as well. And, you know, if you slander them, you know, you're cutting off the possibility, right? Back to the samurai, if you talk bad about a lord, and then your brother wants to go there, and really wants to go with them, but oh, you're related to him, and he said smack about me. See, you got rid of their chance. You cut off their chance, right? Again, in modern times, same thing with the boss. You know, you talk smack about a boss, you ain't coming back. The only example I could think of is my friend I had, I don't know if I should say former friend from a long time ago. You know, we had the same security job, and he found something better. And he was convinced it was better and he needed to go right now. And I said, okay, well, 2 weeks is not that long. Like, well, I want to go now. Oh, you want to quit? Oh, okay, that's a little different. I don't know if you want to do that, you know, because, and I told him that. I told him, hey, if you're cutting off this bridge, you can't come back, you know. So let's say you go here and it's not good. You can't come back to us, you know. So I'm trying to tell him, like, I'm not your dad, but like 2 weeks is not that long, you know. Why burn this bridge? You know, how can it be that important, basically? But I respected it, and I was like, you know, I'm telling you what I'm telling you, but you're your own man. I'm not your dad, you know. And so we decided to walk out. He did it. I said, okay, fine. That was his choice, right? So he went to the new job. He liked it. One day he didn't like it, and then he left, and he was looking for a job. He was having trouble finding a job, and he said, hey, are you guys hiring? And we were like desperately hiring. We needed people. He's like, okay, yeah, well, set me up. And I'm like, well, put an application. You're gonna do what everyone else does, you know, and he did. And so in the next few weeks, I'm talking, oh, did we get the applications? Did you guys hear anything? You know? And they're like, no, we didn't get anything. I was like, oh, okay. So basically that just means that, yes, they got it. They remembered he walked out, and they're like, we're desperate, but we're not that desperate. Okay? Now, eventually he found something else, but I think the lesson is clear there, right? 2 weeks is not that long, okay? If he had done that, found out the new job was bad, and be like, I made a mistake, let me come back, then it would have been no problem. That's exactly what happened to me. So we had the same security job. I thought I found something better, and they let me go, no problem. I did the 2 weeks, everything's fine. I worked there, and I go, man, this sucks. I want to come back. I let them know, oh my goodness. They set me up on the freaking, like, I don't know, freight train or something. They got me back in like zzz, really fast. They're like, okay, here's your uniform, come back. That was it, you know? And so then I stayed with them. Fine, I'm great. I made a mistake, I came back, I'm good, you know? Then I decided to go back to school and I just got my degree. And I found a job in my career and I was like, hey guys, I'm gonna leave again. I wanna go into my college degree study. Like, yeah, okay. They did it. I did my 2 weeks again. No problem. Okay. So again, right? Just do what you're supposed to do. There's ain't no problem. No reason to burn bridges unless it's really, really bad. I'm not saying you can't ever walk out. I walked out on 2 jobs and they were garbage. They deserved it. They deserved it, to be honest. So yes, if a job is harming your physical, mental, emotional health, walk out on them. Fuck them. But if they're not, it's just 2 weeks, guys. You know, you can handle it. Some might be 4 weeks. My mental health job was, but I also had like 62 clients, so you can't really transfer that many people in like 2 weeks. But yeah, whatever. 2 weeks, 4 weeks, doesn't matter, right? Just do it. It's not that big of a deal. You know, your career as you work, it's a picture of your career. Okay, every place that you go, even if it's a job that you really, really want, guess what? They want to see a long record of stuff. Okay, you don't want that to say I walked out on a job. Even if they deserved it, you don't want them to see that. Okay, so just try to do your 2 weeks, 4 weeks, no problem. Again, don't talk smack about a former job, former lord. It's just not good character for you. Okay. Now, lesson 13 is the law of borrowing the Lord's authority. So here, Daidoji says that sometimes as a samurai, you'll be given authority from your lord to do things while the lord's away or something like that. Unfortunately, it's happened where somebody was given the authority, then they decided to cause mutiny, get cozy with people, create a new cabinet of people, then betray the Lord. That's happened. Okay, obviously Daidoji doesn't want you to do that. There's not really something like that here. Maybe if you worked in like business, maybe you guys stab each other in the back, but I don't know. The rest of us, not so much. But even so, like if you have the authority from your job or your dad's credit card, do not abuse that authority. You know, I used to be a site manager at my first security job. I had 2 officers below me, and I never like bossed them around. You know, I was never above them. I talked to them like I was normal. I just happened to be their site manager. You know, anytime they were sick, they can't come in. I'm like, okay, I did it because I'm being paid more than them. Doesn't that mean I have more responsibility? You know, so again, right? Just be appropriate with the authority you're given by your job. My dad, he likes to give me his credit card and be like, oh, go buy something. You know, obviously I can buy something really fancy and expensive all the time, but that's also not nice. It's not nice. And so I'll always kind of pick something frugally, something kind of cheap, kind of easy. I like to go to Casey's, I have the Casey's app, so I get reward points for that. Something like that, where something kind of money is coming back. It's not just going out for no reason, right? Number 14 is companions in play are unnecessary. So for this one, Daidoji is saying that, you know, you'll have companions, which is not, he's not to say don't have them, but have the quality of them, right? If you get people that are like, we're going to drink every weekend. I had people like that. That's all they want to do, you know. You're going to get that habit, right? The saying is that the average of the 5 people you hang around most is what you become, right? So you need to pick people that that have something that you want, you know. So for example, as a martial artist, right, militia, if you can be good friends with military, law enforcement, that'd be great. You know, one of my teammates, he was in the Marines for 14 years. That's a wealth of information for combat, right? Another friend who's in the Army, 4 years. I think he's doing reserve. Again, wealth of combat information, you know. Stick around people that you want to know more from, learn from, people that are motivated, dedicated, you know, not people that are motivated and dedicated for their work, but then once work is over, they want to go drink their life away. That's not necessarily somebody you want to hang around, right? So for your companions, pick people that have traits that you want, you know. So for example, if I don't drink, I don't smoke, great, right? So already you got something. I'm somewhat of a martial artist. That's another thing, right? You may want to hang out with me, right? Stuff like that. Pick people that have things that are of value to you or what you're looking for, especially for self-improvement. Now, lesson 15 is that learning is also important for the warrior in times of peace. So as I mentioned before, a samurai in the old days is brought up in a way just to die, right? You're brought up, you have an expectation that something happens, you're gonna go fight it out, even if you die. That's what they're made for, right? All samurai are expecting to die. That's what they were for. As a result of that, you can imagine that they were quite illiterate. Back then they weren't too focused on reading and writing and things like that. It was just, well, my job is to fight the bad guys, so I'm just waiting for that. And if I die, I die, right? That's how it was. And so there was an excuse for a samurai not to know how to read and write. But now, as Daijoji Yuzan would have been at the time, it's a time of peace. There's no war, right? And so he's suggesting that yes, you should read, you should learn, be more educated, right? He actually recommends the books. They were, it's the 7 classics, the 4 books, and the 5 classics. So I had to look this up, but these are Chinese military classics. And it seems that the 4 books and the 5 classics are incomplete or difficult to get, especially in English translation. It might be hard to get in Chinese translation too, I don't know, but the 7 classics I can get. That is one I can get. So I probably will end up reading that in some time. But as far as the 4 books and 5 classics, it seems they're pretty difficult to get. So that's another book I sniped right there, 7 classics. So hopefully I'll get that and find that. I've seen it though, I can get it. But yes, as a martial artist, we're not just thugs. What makes us different from criminals, we have to be intellectuals. We should read, write, learn what you can, speak languages, Hey man, whatever you can do is just increase your brain all the time. Your brain is actually like it's a kind of muscle that grows with challenge. So if you do something that's not challenging, your brain might actually decay. It might actually go smaller. But if you're challenging something all the time, your brain gets bigger, creates more brain cells, more connections, more intelligent. And by the way, there's also matter in your brain. I think it's gray matter determines your speed, which would be pretty helpful in combat, wouldn't it? So try to keep your brain, always active, always learning, trying to be better every day. Now, as a final lesson, as a counterbalance too, scholarship and refinement too can occasionally be of great harm. So, not to be to go back on it, but here Daidoji is saying that, somebody who's a great warrior may go into tea ceremony, they may go into something else, and they're really enthralled by it, they're so focused on it, and they want to become a master of it, then what happens? They forget how to use their martial arts, right? So in that case, it would have been better if that dude did not look at the tea ceremony at all and just focused on his martial arts. Remember, as a martial artist, that's our journey, right? That's what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be fighting. Yes, we can learn other stuff, but if it's going to capture us and pull us away from martial arts, then maybe it'd be better to just be a novice and stay a novice, right? That way we don't forget our life mission. And of course, as the channel grows on, I am kind of going to be focused more on self-improvement, but that self-improvement is based upon my experience in the martial arts. So it's going to be martial arts based. So I'll have things to kind of help get you a more comfortable, preferable life, but it's going to be martial arts based. So things about your exercise, your diet, right? I'm going to address these things, kind of make you a little bit better, but eventually you might find out, hey, I appreciate it, but I actually want to go into this or that, or bodybuilding or something else. That's perfectly fine. I don't mind. You can do whatever you want to do. I am going to try to just make a self-improvement program for you, right? So that way you can kind of increase your life, but it's going to be martial arts based. And then as you get better, you can decide on your own, hey, actually, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to go in another path. That's perfectly fine. All that I'd really ask is that you remember me. You remember me and remember how real martial artists taught you, right? How I'm teaching you. I come from martial arts, right? This is who I am. The news doesn't want you to think that. They want you to think that we want to kill people every day, and they blame us for people dying every day. That's the news. But this is me. This is me, and I'm telling you, martial arts it's pretty much been my whole life, okay? And I never look to hurt somebody. I'm not trying to hurt somebody. I'm not looking for that. It happens sometimes. You got to be ready for it. That's all. So if you stay in the martial arts, that's great. Just remember who I am and how I talk to you. If you don't stay in the martial arts, that's fine. But if someone's gonna talk smack about them, just remember me. Remember me, and try to remind them, you know, that just like anybody else, you get bad politicians, you get bad protesters, you get bad cops. They can be bad martial artists too. I can't control that. I control myself, but I can't control anybody else. So I hope you keep us in the best image in your mind. I'd like you to keep the best image of us in your mind. And just remember me when you get to the top. Now, those are the 16 lessons I picked for the Budoshoshinshu. This is, of course, the Warrior's Primer of Daidoji Yuzan. I have started reading a little bit of Hagakure, and I know that William Scott Wilson says that the Samurai Trilogy starts with Hagakure, but I actually would not do that. I wouldn't do that because this book is a little bit more clear and direct, and also not very religious. I would say it's not very religious. Hagakure can be quite religious. Zen Buddhism is the religion there, and so I found out that when I read Hagakure without the Zen Buddhism, it's very difficult to understand. But when you read it with the Buddhism, it makes more sense. So since Hagakure is a religious book, I really would start with that. You can if you want to do it the way William Scott Wilson said. I honestly think this would be a good start. If you want to go to Hagakure understanding the religious aspect, when you go into it, that's fine. Otherwise, Ideals of Samurai, I haven't started reading that yet, but I probably plan to. But yes, I'm on like 40 pages for Hagakure, so I'll try to get that done. I thought it'd be pretty easy, but honestly work has been amping up, so I may not be able to sneak as many pages as I thought I could. But that'll be the end of this video. Book review for Budoshoshinshu. Again, I think it's great. I will say a lot of the lessons are more to do with 16th century Japan, as in they don't translate here to 2026. But still, it's kind of nice to read, to know. I've also got a nice list of other books in the back, literary links to the Orient. Again, I'd have to research them if they are of interest to me, but for now, yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, you can always leave it in the comment section below. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video, okay? Bye now.
You learned martial arts! Martial arts, good!